Chair hands down on third reading, House Bill 1058.
House Bill 1058, a bill for enactment.
Bills on its final passage. Chair recognizes Representative Bacon for discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House. First, I'd like to thank my co-author, Representative Macer, for all the help that she's given me on this bill. This bill 1058 will be a new requirement for assisted living operators only, and that they shall inform their residents living with them information concerning influenza and the flu vaccine, the means of which the influenza is spread, the cause and symptoms, the risk associated with, and the availability, effectiveness, and contraindications of that. It does not require them to make the vaccine available or to tell them where to get it. It's just going to give them the information that they should have. It passed the committee 11-0. Afterwards, on second reading, we did put in an amendment of that the operators, if to meet these requirements, only needed to go to the CDC website and print off the information is there, which I have a copy of here. So it's 1 or 2 sheets of paper that would cost them just a few pennies to print off. They can either give it to them, the residents themselves, or they could email it to them or just post it. So we made no recommendations on how they were to do that. And the Immunization Coalition and the Indiana Healthcare Association has no problems with the bill. So I would appreciate your support.
Further discussion on the bill? Chair sees none. Questions on the adoption of House Bill 1058 on final passage. When the machine is open, all in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. It's neck and neck. They're coming around the fourth turn. Last call. Have all the members voted? Tally the roll. Roll call shows 51 ayes, 45 noes. The bill has passed.
So I'm here to talk about compelled speech, kind of a big topic of our time. You know, the Supreme Court is dealing with this, and I think that this is an issue of compelled speech. So this is kind of the title of what I have to say. It's sad that our generation does not have the deep respect for freedom of speech that those who went before us had, especially given that we, like every generation, find ourselves answering the same question they did. Quoting Ronald Reagan, freedom is fragile and never more than a generation away from extinction. Unlike the British government, our founders fled. In our government, every branch is limited in its power. We do not have an omnipotent parliament, but a legislature restrained by a constitution. You are limited by this state and federal constitution. Our constitution includes the freedom of speech, freedom to speak and not to speak. That is an inalienable right, but one you can be a part of alienating by compelling speech. Approving this law does not help the governor take Indiana to the next level. It takes us to the next step towards oppressive government coercion, and at its best, like California, the case before the Supreme Court now in NIFLA versus Becerra, and it's similar to many other cases in the Supreme Court that is taken up this year concerning compelled speech. In that case, California's law requires pro-life pregnancy centers to communicate about the availability of abortion services. Now stay with me, I'm really getting somewhere. The Supreme Court sees that this is a worthy case to speak to and must be prepared to you must be prepared to find yourself on the wrong side of history to compel speech. The government can only infringe that right and compel speech under extremely limited circumstances, which these are not. These circumstances are danger posed to the public by virtue of that which has been placed into the stream of commerce. For example, cigarettes. The government can compel cancer warnings on cigarette boxes. As the Supreme Court states, disclosure can be required to prevent consumer deception. That's not the facts here. Hoosier landlords don't deserve this coercion when they have not exposed the tenants to an increased risk of the flu. The law is by no means the end of the world, and none of the laws you deal with are, but bit by bit, our freedoms are taken away with little coercions here and there, little mandates here and there. Every landlord, every Jehovah's Witness landlord who does not believe in vaccinations, that religion, or any of these ladies who testified, if they wanted to be a landlord and forced to pass out maybe vaccine information they don't believe in. And that, like I said, just this doesn't fall under your right to force them to do that, because being a landlord their living there doesn't give them a risk. Being a landlord has nothing to do with the flu, which sometimes these assisted living facilities are run by a landlord, and sometimes the health care is a separate body that comes to visit. Qualified medicine aides, maybe a nurse. And so this is separate from the landlord. This is not a disclosure to warn tenants of a risk posed to them by virtue of their tenancy. It would be different, like I said, if there were increased risk of flu by virtue of them living there. You should not assume this bill does not violate the Constitution if you yourself have not thought long and hard to answer the question.
This is being live streamed and you're all being watched worldwide. We are not alone, and we are not going away. And we will fight for as long as it takes.
Today's decision by the Supreme Court upholds the right of all Americans of both sides of these debates to be able to speak freely their beliefs and not have to violate their convictions. And the government cannot express hostility towards those with whom it disagrees. Tolerance and respect for good faith differences of opinion are essential to a diverse society. They enable us to coexist peacefully and to be tolerant of one another. If we want freedom for ourselves, we must extend it to those with whom we disagree. The court has consistently held that government hostility towards people of faith is unconstitutional and has no place in a diverse society. The Supreme Court was right to put a stop to the unconstitutional law that undermined the rights of all Americans.